Class 81, the High School of Commerce, is Tiara Ortiz, supported by Principal Mr. Paul Neal, Executive Principal, and Dr. Sonia Donnell, Principal. So if Principal Neal and Dr. Donnell, if you'd like to open up first, then we'll go to Tiara Ortiz.
Good evening, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to be here with you all. Can you all hear me okay? Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this invitation and this awesome opportunity. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Superintendent, esteemed members of the Springfield School Committee. We are indeed happy to be able to present our student, Tiara Ortiz.
Hold on one second.
Am I okay to continue?
Hello?
Can you all hear me okay?
Molly,
Yes.
I can't hear anything.
Yes, we.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, sorry about that. So it is a pleasure to introduce Tiara Ortiz this evening. I have never had the honor of meeting this scholar, but I took a look in Power School and I was impressed, to say the least, at what I saw in Power School. She's a junior here at the High School of Commerce, and I am just amazed at the grades that this young lady has earned during her time with us at the High School of Commerce. She's truly a leader. Her transcript has nothing but honors courses and dual enrollment courses, and I hear nothing but good things about her. Several of the administrators and other students who are her friends have nothing but great things to say about how she's a leader. She's truly committed to everything that she does. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Ms. Tiara Ortiz.
Wait, time out, Dr. We apologize.
Okay.
The new system here, so I don't know if everybody heard that audio, so it's deja vu all over again. You know, we were trying to get your attention with time out. If you could, we'd love to hear your remarks again, please, and then we'll have Ms. Ortiz. We apologize. It's a completely new system they put in here, and of course, I still have an Etch-a-Sketch, so it makes it difficult for me. We'd love to have you say a few words, introduce Tiara, and then I think we're all copacetic. Thank you so much for your patience and understanding.
Okay, no problem, no problem. So I don't know if you were able to catch it all with your Etch-a-Sketch, but Mr. Mayor, I'm sure you are far above and beyond an Etch-a-Sketch. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Tiara is an impressive young lady. She is a leader and a scholar, to say the least. Her transcript is full of honors courses, high grades, and just, I'm impressed. And I can't wait to meet her face to face one day. Dr. Waters, who is in charge of our dual enrollment program, says nothing but glowing things about this young lady. Her peers, other administrators in the building have nothing but great things to say about her. And we are really proud to have her as a representative of the High School of Commerce. So Tiara, please go ahead and share with everyone here what you have prepared for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Donnell.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for having me as a representative for Commerce High School. I'm excited to talk about my experience at Commerce. I've been there since I was a freshman. I'm a junior, so I haven't gone and I haven't came in late. I've gotten this full experience from freshman to junior, and I will also be there next year. Since freshman year, Commerce has given me a lot of leadership opportunities when it's come to whether it be sports or academics, and even outside of school extracurriculars. It was really my sophomore year that I started peaking with all my leadership opportunities and really getting just that full high school experience and grasping all the opportunities that Commerce has to offer. So my freshman year, I started with dual enrollment. I had the first year experience. I believe we were the first class to have a sophomore dual enrollment, if I'm not mistaken. And we had that with STCC, and I was glad to be a part of that. This year I followed up with dual enrollment, and I had 2 courses last semester that I got A's in both. I took psychology and public speaking. This semester I have another 2 that I'm working on, and so those are some academic leadership opportunities that I've had. And as a athlete, I've been able to win a most valuable scholar athlete because of my hard work and dedication and having the highest GPA within the athletes. And so from that, they also called it cheerleader of the year. Following, that was my sophomore year, and growing on that, I was able to become cheer captain this year. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had like a distance learning, but I'm excited to get back in the building, hopefully as soon as possible, to really get into that leadership role. This year, I'm also doing Project Coach, which is, if you don't know, a extracurricular with Smith, where we focus on leadership skills and helping children. Unfortunately, again, we don't have the full effects because we can't be with the children because of COVID. And I've also had the opportunity to be a part of National Honor Society, which is something most recent that I'm proud of to share with you guys. I'm just grateful to have had all these leadership opportunities that I didn't even know were available to me, and just being grateful for getting recognized for my hard work, and just getting recognized. It just makes you want to go harder, keep going, and keep pushing. So I'm glad to share that with you guys and the experience at Commerce, and thank you for having me.
Great job, Pierre. Thank you. Good job. Thank you. We now have Springfield Honors Academy, supported by Grace Howard Donald, the principal, Leanne Downs, the AP mathematics teacher and senior class advisor. Nathaniel Ponte is in the house. Jonesy Matala is in the house. Bertrina Spencer, Isaiah Hernandez. If I pronounced your name wrong, please correct me, and my apologies. Madam Principal.
Thank you, Mayor Sarno. Good evening to you and to Superintendent Warwick and our school committee members. It's always an honor to attend this evening and to have an opportunity to showcase our students at SHA. This marks, crazily enough, the founding years. Freshmen are now seniors. 4 years have come strangely and quickly, but I brought 4 seniors to you tonight to share, highlight a bit of their journey. Just a moment each to touch upon what this has been like and where they're planning to go. And Jonice, Bertrina, Isaiah, and Nate all come from distinct programs in the city and joined us at SHA, taking a leap of faith for a new program, and have been so incredibly successful in that program. And I'm so proud to be their principal, and they'll surely be missed. They're very missed actually anyway right now, but surely be missed upon graduation. So I'm gonna put the hot seat first on Aponte, because he can handle just about anything when he's talking. So Nate, why don't you take it away?
Hey, Nate.
Hi, hello. My name is Nathaniel. I go by Nate. Thank you so much, Principal HD. Now, my experience with Springfield Honors Academy has easily been one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life. I've made so many friends that I consider family. All the teachers I've gotten along with, and they've been such a huge influence on my life. And I've learned so much at this school that I know it's going to help me in the future. Starting this year with quarantine and all that, it's been a bit of an issue trying to change and like adapt to this different format. But I'm really proud of how the school is addressing this format. And I feel like if I was in another school, it wouldn't be like this. I feel proud of the work that I'm doing, and I feel proud of the school that I'm attending. I've just recently got accepted into the Massachusetts College of Liberal Arts, and I feel that wouldn't have happened if I didn't go to Springfield Honors Academy. So thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak here. Thank you, Principal HD, for letting me in the school. Yeah.
Way to go, Nate. Good job. That stands for high def then? Did you say that? Nice job, Nate. Who's up next?
That's great. Jonice, why don't we turn it over to you?
Jonice.
Hi, I'm Janice. Thank you for having me. Springfield Honors Academy, it's definitely been a very different experience because in my middle school, it used to be very kind of small and more centered, and you would be with the same people for a lot of years. So going into Honors Academy, I met completely new people because no one from my middle school went to Honors Academy. And I made friends with all of them. Honestly, it was fun. We learned together. We've been through everything together. And now we're gonna, graduate together. And the way the school is handling this whole COVID situation, it's handled it very well. It's pretty easy to access the teachers if you ever need to talk to them, access a counselor, just send them an email, get some help, and they always reply. They're always there to help you. Yeah, definitely I want to thank the school for giving me this opportunity and allowing me to get into college easier than other schools, in my opinion.
Thank you, Lisa, very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonice. And now, Isaiah, I know that you've sacrificed actually quite a bit to come on tonight because you had a conflict. Why don't you go ahead? Are you there?
Isaiah?
Yeah, I'm here.
There you go.
Honestly, I totally forgot we were gonna share tonight. So.
Oh, Isaiah, can you share anything about? You're pretty good on your feet. Go ahead.
Come from the heart, Isaiah. Come from the heart. You'll be fine.
I think the biggest thing that's developed out of me after attending the school definitely be my work ethic. Definitely when it came to different aspects of my life were considered a little bit lackluster, and I tended to procrastinate a lot. And definitely the school was able to bring that out of me. And a lot of times where in middle school where I was considered like the smartest kid in the room and I didn't have to try a lot. This is the one thing that actually pushed me to actually care about my future. And can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry.
Doing fine, I'd say. Doing fine.
Yeah. This has been kind of an unorthodox senior year. I mean, it doesn't really feel like it, but it's something that I've learned to deal with, and I feel like being able to come through this year and I'll have the necessary skills to project me or propel me further in life.
Isaiah, you want to share any of your acceptances?
I got into UMass Boston. I got into Springfield College.
Oh, I see.
Good job. Great job, love.
Yeah, that wasn't too bad going off the cuff. That was pretty good.
Okay, Britrina, you want to take us home?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, my name's Bertrina. I'm a senior. Yeah, I already mentioned I'm a senior. Going to school during COVID has been hard. I found myself procrastinating a lot, but then I stopped myself, and now I'm trying to push forward for quarter 3 and quarter 4. And because of Springfield Honors Academy, I got into 10 schools, and I applied to 15. I'm waiting on 5 acceptances. We're at Western University, Johnson and Wales, New Haven, Emmanuel College, Framingham State University, Roger Williams, Southern New Hampshire University, University of Hartford, UMass Amherst, UMass Lowell, and University of New Haven.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. I plan to go to Western New England University and study business in the fall. And one of my proudest moments at SHA would be like raising my GPA. Like I started out with like a 2.0 and now my quarter 2 GPA is a 4.1.
And
Yes.
I'm
Nice
very
work.
grateful. I'm very grateful to be a part of the founding class because they put in so much effort in us. They make time for us. Like they make study halls in the night where we go and practice for upcoming exams, and those helped a lot. So I'm very grateful. So thank you, Principal HG and the staff, everyone.
Thank you, Betrina. Nice work, love.
Thank you, Principal HD. Hi, Def. We
Yeah.
appreciate that. The kids did a great job.
You're welcome. Thank you.
John
Thank
J. Duggan Academy is in the house, middle and high school, supported by Principal Michael Calvin. Mikey, say hi to the family. And April Robinson, Assistant Principal. April, say hi to the Griffins, especially your Uncle Jay. So who's going to tee this baby up?
Hello, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and the school board committee. Thank you for inviting me. It's just been an honor just to be here, just to hear. I want to congratulate all the students that spoke previously. Congratulations and just good work. I really just want to give a hand clap on that. But I have the pleasure to present to some and introduce to others one of our Duggan's finest. Alana Jenny is a 7th grader who I had the pleasure of meeting when she joined us in 6th grade. Alana is a role model. She's very humble. She's very quiet. She's also part of our Duggan ambassadors. She enjoys helping others. She doesn't like taking any credit, even though I give her a lot, but she's a really pleasant young lady. Without further ado, I present to you Alana Jenny. Take it away, Alana.
Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, school committee board members, friends, and family. My name is Alana Jenny. I am a 7th grade student who lives in the city of Springfield and attends John J. Duggan Academy. The start of my education at Duggan was great. I got great teachers, I met new friends, I even made new friends with the girls on the soccer team. But most of all, I felt like I was growing and becoming a better person. Then all of a sudden, the COVID pandemic hit. It seemed like our entire world was destroyed in a matter of seconds. No school, no seeing the teachers, no seeing my friends, or even some of my family. What happened? How did this happen? Why did this happen? I had so many questions about my future, about school, about my friends. How will I see my friends? How will I achieve at education? No one seemed to have the answer, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if there was one. When they announced that we were going back to school remotely, I said to myself, wow, how will this work? But since returning to school remotely, I must say the Duggan family has done a great job adjusting to this new normal as much as possible. I'm able to see and talk to my friends remotely, of course. Teachers are available to me and my family beyond office hours. And every week we come together with the whole 7th grade at community meeting and have different activities that allow everyone to come together and hang out. In the fall, I even got to play soccer, with COVID restrictions, of course. Although I miss seeing my friends and teachers in person, I truly appreciate all of our Duggan family for keeping everyone upbeat and positive during this tough time. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Nice job, Elena. Thank you. Van Sickle Academy is in the house, supported by Principal Bobby Francesca. Bobby, you must be staying away from your father, huh? Geez, watch out. He's got those scissors for you. Give you a little trim there. And Ronnie McCoy, Assistant Principal. Ahmad Ahid, I pronounced it wrong, please correct me. And Shailene Gonzalez. Shailene, like your hat, man. Like that cap. So, Bobby, Principal Francesca, we're teeing it up for you.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, school committee members. It's a pleasure to be here tonight. It's hard to believe that this is already our second middle school speak out, and I'm proud to present Shaylee Gonzalez and Ahmed Hamid, which ironically both congratulatory. They've both been accepted to Springfield Honors Academy within the last day, and I want to give them a big round of applause because I've had the pleasure of knowing them since 6th grade, and they have grown, matured, and succeeded in school beyond belief. I'm very, very proud of both students, and I'm very proud to present them to you tonight. Let them tell you a little about their experience at Van Sickle. And with that, I will turn it over to Shaylee.
Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and members of the school committee. My name is Shaylee Gonzalez, and I'm an 8th grader at Vancicle Academy. This is not the school year I ever would have imagined. The pandemic is not how I expected it to go. It threw me off a little bit. After all the years I've been at Vancicle Academy, it's amazing how fast this year has gone by. I loved all the projects and the fun activities we had throughout the year, but I miss interacting with all my friends and having the connections that only can be shared when you are in person. Some things get lost when you're not able to interact with one another. I have been lucky that I can honestly say I liked all the teachers I had at Vancicle Academy. I am hoping that next school year I can repeat all the fun activities and meet new people in high school. The one positive thing about the pandemic happening this year is that I know most of my classmates and I had some idea of who my teachers were. That is one of the positives about Vancicle Academy. It is a small school, so even though you may not have a certain teacher, you get to at least know who they are just by seeing them around. Mr. Francesca did make the choice to rotate one teacher from last year into my current grade. That way, we had a relationship with one of our teachers from day one. Our teachers support us, but still have expectations to complete our work, and they try to make it fun at the same time. As we start to look forward to next year, I'm hoping to focus my goals and continue to get help and achieve them. Thank you.
Nice job. Ahmad, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and members of the school committee. My name is Ahmed, and I am an 8th grade student at Vancicle Academy. And throughout my years, I've made so many memories. I have learned so much from my teachers in subjects ranging from math to English and everything in between. What made all the years here so great was the staff and my peers. When I go to school, I truly feel excitement to learn in a positive environment. Even throughout this pandemic, I still wake up every day ready to learn. Although it's a little bit difficult not to be in a classroom, through computer screen or not, me and my peers push through because we are driven by the passion of learning and not only growing smarter, but also growing as humans. We are looking forward to what's next instead of focusing on the past. Next year will also bring along that same excitement because it is the start of a new chapter filled with new friends, new opportunities to learn, and fellow students. My bad.
You're doing fine, Ahmad. You're doing fine. I do it all. Don't worry about it.
And new opportunities to learn and prepare me and my fellow students for a good academic future. Right now, me and my fellow students will continue to work hard to push towards the future that is best for us in order for us to accomplish our dreams. Personally, I hope to graduate high school and have a well-paying job after college. I'm currently looking forward to what's next. Thank you for this opportunity for letting me speak with you.
Nice job, Ahmad. Mommy, nice job. Tell mom and dad I'll see them at Mount Carmel Church, okay? And watch out
Thank
for
you.
those things.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
She's gonna get you, you know. Vancicle Rise Preparatory High School is in the house, supported by Leonis Williams Jr., our assistant principal. Maya Ramos and Anthony Lopez are in the house. Assistant Principal Williams.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Ward, Work and school committee members. I'm honored to present to you Anthony Lopez and Maya Ramos. Both scholars have received high praise from all of their teachers as academic leaders and positive influences within the school community. Anthony is enrolled in our dual enrollment program and he's taken that by storm. And although I have not had the opportunity to meet Maya in person, I know that she's taken the 9th grade by storm. So with no further ado, I'm gonna pass this over to Anthony. Anthony, the floor is yours, superstar.
Thank you, Assistant Principal Williams. Anthony, you're up.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Mayor Sarno, Superintendent Warwick, and school committee members. Thank you for having me tonight to talk about my experience at Rise Prep. My name is Anthony Lopez. I'm 16 years old and in 10th grade, and I love Rise Academy. I plan on going to a trade school and then to college. And with the benefits this school offers, I think I'm going to do great getting there. I'm here to say a few words about Rise. All good things, promise. Now, Rise as we know is one of the newer schools, and at first glance, you might not know what to think. But let me assure you, Rise is a wonderful school with great teachers, unique students, and not only is it fun, but it's beneficial to our learning experience. Allow me to elucidate. I had no idea what to expect when I got to Rise. I hadn't even gotten there till around the end of November, first year. But during my time at Rise, I felt like I was part of a family. I was introduced to a few people and accepted as a person. I couldn't have asked for a better high school experience. Here at Rise, it was decided to change 1 or 2 different classes periodically. As an example, I had phys ed for 2 quarters, but now I have computer science. Recently, students got the opportunity to participate in college classes taught by professors. This will not only prepare students for college later on, but also provides college credits. The teachers at Rise teach us useful and interesting things to better our performance. They literally go above and beyond. This is clear proof that Rise teachers care about their students' education. After having thought about Rise and my feelings about the school, I see now that it's far more than just a school. In the dictionary, the definition of the word school is an institution for educating children. But to me, Rise is so much more than that. I feel a school is made up not with just bricks or cement, but by the people in the school, the teachers, the janitors, the nurse, and us students. We make the school great, and I'm honored to be a part of Rise Academy. Thank you very much.
Great job. You're hired. Way to go.
Thank you.
Great job. Maya, Ms. Ramos, you're up. How are you?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Maya Ramos. I'm a 9th grader at Rise. As expected, transitioning into high school was difficult, but having the support that is provided is a big help. Everyone has had their own challenges to overcome with going remote. Personally, I have a big family, so you can imagine how loud it could get, and focusing can be a difficult thing. And going remote wasn't something I was too thrilled about. But as the school year went on, I became a lot more open to it. Doing online makes me feel like I can do more at my own pace and get more done. The curriculum, and I feel more confident in my work because the curriculum is challenging but not extremely difficult. I feel very supported by the teachers, and I find it very helpful that it's so easy to talk to them. My history teacher, Ms. Pupek, and biology teacher, Mr. Platt, create such an inviting atmosphere, and I really appreciate how they talk to us one-on-one. Overall, I find that online school has been a blessing in disguise for me. Thank you for the opportunity for talking here today.
Good job, Maya. Thank you. Okay, last but not least is Van Sickle Emergence Academy, and is supported by the principal, Amanda Gauthier, one of my old interns, Emily Burdick, which I'm very proud of, and Amanda Rook, who my daughters there went to school, Frederick Harris School. We're now teachers. And Keandrick White is the mentor, and is it Suez Mohammed, if I pronounce it wrong, and Ibrahim Mohammed. So I'll turn it over to you, Principal Gauthier. If I pronounce your name wrong, please correct me.
Good evening, everyone. We're so excited to be here with 2 of our incredible scholars. We have Abdi and Sudais Mohammed, who are brothers who have joined us just this fall. So they're brand new to the Springfield Public Schools, and they bring so much joy and laughter and love to our school community every day. And I think you'll also hear in their speeches the ambition that's going to come through, and stay out of their way because these gentlemen are going places.
Right.
Abdi, I'm going to ask you to jump in first. We had a little tech issue, but it looks like you overcame your tech obstacles. So go ahead, Abdi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abdi. My age is 14. I am a student of an emergency academy, and my family is really important to me. My mom is still in Africa, and I want her to come here. That is my important thing that I am always thinking about. My mom is my life, and I need her. My favorite part about Emergency Academy is math and reading books. I really like the book called Books by Kawami Alexandra. I learn more things like words and English in emergency academy. I really like it. This month is a Black History Month, and we are watching videos every morning of famous Black Americans. I like learning about a woman who was living in a space. My biggest dream is to be an actor who makes movies. Thank you, the school community, for giving me your time and listen to me today.
Nice job, Abby. Brothers too. Where's the
All
brother?
right, Sudesh, you're up.
Hello, my name is Sudesh. I'm 11 years old. I'm from Emergency Academy. I'm in 7th grade. I like to learn math and reading. Every morning we learn a book called Best Friend by Shannon. I like my teachers because they help me to learn. I want to go at my university. I want to learn a business and I want to be a CEO. Thanks for giving me your time.
Thank you. Both brothers from the heart. Wish you continued success. Thank you. That was a great student representative from our Springfield School and Farmers on Maureen. You're more than welcome to stay. We're going to go into our formal meeting. And again, fantastic, and keep up your good work. And happy Valentine's Day to you all. Don't forget your sweethearts or your families too, okay? All right, that concludes.
Thank you, everyone.
Student.
Great job.
Representative.
Great job.
Great job. Representative, speak up. Thank you. We'll give a 1 minute reset. There you go. You're muted. Maria, like the new glasses. Okay, we got to fish. Josue, are we all set? I know you.
Thank you.
You're still
Good to go.
okay.
Great.
All right, that was extra commentary there. We'll call the meeting to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Latonya, you're muted. She's here. She's on.
Ms. Naylor here.
Present.
Attorney Murphy,
He was present at the speak.
Peter, you're muted.
Herb? You're muted. Hey.
Attorney Murphy,
We can see him. Pete, just wave and say you're here.
got it. Attorney Murphy, present. Ms. Hurst,
Present.
Ms. Gresham,
Present.
Ms. Perez,
Present.
Mr. Collins,
Here.
Mayor Sarno.
Present. Could we all please rise for a moment of silence and we're going to pledge allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Thank you to Focus Springfield, Josue. Appreciate all your efforts to keep government going and public input. And to each and every one of you out there, happy Valentine's Day, healthy, happy Valentine's Day, and don't forget your sweethearts. Okay, we'll go to the approval of the minutes, January 28th, 2021, regular session minutes. Any questions or comments?
Move they be approved.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required in Zoom meetings. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
She said yes. Maria?
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, for sufficient vote, this matter passes. I'd also like to thank Patrick Sullivan, who's here from Facilities, Parks Management, and also Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris, who's also here to give briefings on upcoming subjects. Voting items now, A, to approve the fall second session in sports. Superintendent Warwick, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Dwayne Early, our athletic director, and Lydia Martinez, our assistant superintendent, are here to present. They've been working on this program with our wonderful health commissioner, Helen Carlton Harris, who's also here. So I'm going to turn it over to them now.
Thank you, Superintendent. Good evening, everyone. So here we are again before you for Fall Sports 2, which are going to occur from March 1 until April 28, 2021. If you recall, back in the fall, football and other sports were postponed because of the virus. So here we are with that extra season this year. Normally we have just the 3 seasons, but this year we have the 4th. And so we are before you again. The committee has met. We have looked at all the modifications, and we have looked at everything that MIAA and everybody else has given us for guidelines. And tonight we are here to give you our recommendations. We want to thank Jeannie Clancy and Commissioner Helen Carlton Harris, who have really been working with us side by side the entire school year. And so with all of our blessings, I'm going to turn it over to AD Dwayne Early to provide tonight's recommendations for this season. Dwayne?
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Lydia Martinez. Patty, could you please share the first slide, please? And good evening, everyone. So as Ms. Martinez alluded to, we are here before you again to seek the approval and show you the Fall 2 sports that will be beginning in March 1st. So if Patty, could you please go to the second slide? Again, as I said, Fall 2 will start on March 1st and will conclude on the 25th of April. And there will be no postseason play as with all the other sports. We will be providing training to all the trainers, coaches, athletes, and site supervisors. All gyms that will be in use will follow all CDC guidelines and specific sports modifications. We won't be allowing any spectators as well. Locker and bathroom protocols will also be put in place as we have before, and there will be designated entrances and exits doors for all gyms. So for Fall 2, we have 3 sports. However, indoor track right now we will not be able to participate in the city of Springfield due to the fact that the facility that we use is Smith College. That's where the indoor track facility is, and we are not able to access that due to COVID this year. So the recommendation for indoor track is that we do not participate due to the fact that we cannot access the facility. For our second sport that is eligible for play in Fall 2 is girls volleyball. For girls volleyball, it will be very similar to the sports in the past. They will participate in positive 10 with no cross interaction. Once they're in those positive 10, they will stay in those positive 10. For volleyball, competition will be similar to basketball, where we will be able to participate against SPS teams only. And also some of the modifications, and one of the main points of emphasis for modifications for volleyball is that players usually switch in between sets. However, for this season, they won't switch sides of the court, and they also won't switch benches during competition, so that we eliminate any cross contact and any unnecessary contact. Once again, locker and bathroom protocols will be established, and because we will be participating against SPS teams only, there will be no transportation required. And the recommendation is that we do participate in volleyball. The second sport, the third sport that is offered in fall too, indoor track isn't able to go, but volleyball and football. The third is there will be regular season games played, no tournament or championship play as well. It will be a modified shortened season of 4 to 6 games instead of the normal 10. Practices, once again, like all other sports, will occur in pods of 10, and there will be no cross contact between pods. The coaches and the students will stay in those pods. During inclement weather, practices will occur indoors. As you've noticed, we have some snow on the ground, so the season will have to start inside. The gyms will be set up with all recommended modifications in place, including a designated mask break area, as well as all participants wearing masks at all times. For football, SPS teams will play non-SPS teams, including away games. They will have to travel to participate in football. During the games, some of the points of emphasis for modifications that the game benches on the sidelines, a normal sideline stops at the 30s. The sidelines will be extended to enable social distancing. There will also only be allowed 45 players on the sideline for game participation. There won't be any huddles during any game. The players and coaches will have to rely on hand signals and signs to communicate plays, to also eliminate any unnecessary gathering of the players. Transportation, because we can't play inside of SPS for football, transportation will be required for practices and games. The recommendation is that we do participate in football.
And then the other point of clarification is that our proposal is also to test all the students prior to the season beginning, during the season, and again, postseason, just to ensure that all our students remain safe.
Thank you for all your work, Assistant Superintendent Martinez and Athletic Director A.D. Dwayne Early. Open up any questions or comments of Superintendent Warwick. Anything you want to say first before I open up to school committee members?
No, very grateful to the Health Commissioner for all our support, for Jeannie Clancy, but Lydia and Dwayne have done a fabulous job on this.
Thank you.
I don't know if Commissioner Helen Carlton-Harris or Nurse Clancy would like to say anything, or school committee members.
A question, Mr. Mayor or Superintendent. So with transportation, will parents be transporting them to the practice for practice?
I defer that to Dwayne.
Yes, parents will transport the kids to practice because they're working remotely, so they will be have to be transported to the sites for practice. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
No problem.
To follow up on that, Mr. Early, how's transportation going to the away games? What are some of the details on that?
So, hello, Mr. Collins. So for transportation, we are allowed to put 21 people per bus. I will have to order extra buses to ensure social distancing on all buses because we can't go over the max of 21.
Okay, yes.
And we got an update from DESE today relative to transportation. There's some new transportation guidance that I'm having Pat Roach review, but it might have some implications for us to make it easier for you. But we haven't had a chance to review it yet. We'll bring it forward when we go over review it with Dwayne.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor. Yeah. So why does one sport get to travel and the other doesn't? Is it because there are no other teams for our volleyball team to play? Or is there an exception being made for football because we're in a particular division? Why does one sport get to travel and the other one doesn't?
So the answer to your question, Ms. Hurst, which is a very good question, is the fact that volleyball they play in similar divisions so that we can participate within the city. However, on football, the Commerce, Putnam, and Central are in different leagues and in different divisions, so therefore they would have to travel to play those similar and like teams.
Thank you, Ms. Serge. Any other questions or comments?
I have a question.
Taylor?
I guess the question is kind of along the thinking of what we had the last time we talked about sports, right? And so one of the concerns that I have with us traveling to other districts is what is their policy and how are they ensuring that their kids are okay and that our kids are protected? Are we looking at guidance or protocols that other folks are implementing to see if we are in fact putting our kids at risk?
Yeah, so everyone has to follow the guidelines that were put out by MIAA and that PBIAC have agreed. But what we are doing is also writing a letter to those districts and letting them know what we are doing in Springfield. And we're going to highly recommend that they test their students also. That was part of the discussion that we had with our commissioner.
So may I follow up with
yes,
to that question? So if in fact folks are not implementing at least the same level of caution that we are, will we make a decision not to allow our kids to play, or is it just a precautionary request and we're still going to proceed regardless?
So once we test all of our students and we know the status of our students, we are going to proceed. That is why we are going to test them again in the middle of the season. And then at the end, if we hear of anything, we will be ready to stop our games right away if we hear that anything goes wrong at any of the other districts. So we'll be keeping a really close eye on the other districts. But unfortunately, we can't have them do the same things that we do, but we are going to highly recommend it.
Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Martinez. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, if I might.
Murphy, yes, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Earlier, Ms. Martinez, is that, so there are no playoffs for any of these sports statewide?
Attorney Murphy, that's correct. No playoffs this year. We haven't had playoffs in the fall. We haven't had playoffs in the winter, and we won't have playoffs in the fall too as well.
That's part of the MIAA guidelines that there cannot be any.
And I know, Central, as we know, Central has a great football program. So will they be traveling to the eastern part of the state? I know in the past they played Brockton and other schools in the eastern part of the state. Will they be able to do that, or is that something that will be restricted?
Attorney Murphy, we're going to restrict the travel to the eastern part of the state for this year due to obviously the COVID situation. What they will be doing is playing surrounding districts, the ADs and the PBIAC and Western Mass. We are right now formulating a schedule of surrounding area teams that each team will play in.
Just to follow up on that, doesn't that hurt some of our kids when so far as exposure and to college recruiters and that kind of thing, because they're not in the eastern part of the state?
So Attorney Murphy, the fortunate thing with football is we do have a program called Huddle, which is a recording software tool that we purchased for the football teams, and they are able actually to record games, and it provides them with the ability to edit and make highlight tapes for each individual if need be, and that's the way that we can get game film and highlight tapes out to prospective colleges for the young athletes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. I know it's with Central. Central plays the power football of they're in the big boy class of the Eastern Mass Powers. You just can't, do that this year. I understand where you're going on that. They're going to be playing, nothing against this side of the state, but Central's the cream of the crop, period. But unfortunately, COVID-19 dictates that a condensed schedule right here because again, Central has been a state champion a couple times, beating all the powerhouse teams in the eastern part of the state. It's unfortunate. But I think Ms. Hurst, did you have a question?
I do, thank you. So, Mrs. Martinez or Mr. Early, so as of right now, do we know if any of the surrounding districts that they are going to be playing against, are any of them currently testing their students?
We do not know that exactly, but we suspect that they are not, just because of past practices from other sports.
Thank you.
Assistant Superintendent Martinez, just as you clarified before, if something was to arise, knock on wood, that there was a situation and the athletic director Early, AD Early, we immediately would pull our student athlete, correct? If, and I hope not.
We do have procedures for that. That's why we've been able to act on the previous sports so rapidly when something has gone array. And so we will continue to practice that procedure.
And just to let you know, the last testing we did with Ms. Clancy and Mr. Helen and Harris, 221, I believe.
Correct.
0 positive. So that's a
221 and 0 positive.
Testament to the system, athletic system, and to the administration, and to the families also, with 0.
You know, and our coach is getting everyone to adhere to the protocols. I mean, the kids are actually doing better than some of the college teams with us. So I'm very proud of our group. Dwayne, you've done a great job.
Any other questions or comments?
May I ask a clarifying question as well? Are we voting on all of the sports at once or individually?
All at once.
Okay.
If there's no other questions or comments, is there a motion to accept?
I would move we accept the recommendation from the committee.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, second.
Second.
Second by Attorney Murphy. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
No.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez, Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, four insufficient votes, matter passes. Thank you very much. B is to approve a transfer of custody and control from the school department to the Board of Park Commissioners. Approximately 24 acres of land constituting a portion of Walsh School property known as on the master plan and for Greenleaf Park attached as Exhibit A, which is no longer needed for school purposes, subject to the approval of the Springfield City Council and the mayor, and upon approval of the grant for park improvements to Greenleaf Park. Patrick Sullivan, Director Sullivan is here. I'll turn it over to the superintendent. We're very appreciative. These are 2 underutilized areas of the city in Hungry Hill, and in 16 acres, they will become beautiful jewels of parks for the residents of the area. So I'm very thankful for the school committee's consideration. Superintendent Ward.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to Patrick Sullivan, who's done a great job with our park system. This park happens to butt our elementary school, Mary Walsh School, former 16-acre school. It's a real asset. And when Patrick takes over a park, he always improves the park tremendously. So it'll be an asset for our kids having this park so well maintained. So let's turn it over to Patrick.
We got contacted of the federal land and water grant was moved up to a February deadline, and the criteria of that grant fit the master plan for Greenleaf, and we've been working on this probably close to a little over 10 years now with the neighborhood, and we've had meetings on and off in the superintendent's office about the plan, and we're very excited to have made the application. And we want to include the 24 acres of school land that abuts the park. We want to increase and add an additional softball field, add 2 playground units, one right behind the school and one further down by the soccer field, add a splash pad, improve the trail system through the park. There's some culverts. Chris will appreciate it from his conservation hat that we love to hear those culverts, but you're almost creating a mini ECHOS program here, potentially for the school with their science program, and then just for your physical education for the students. I think it's going to be a win-win. So it's over $1 million grant application, and the mayor is funding the match for the grant out of the city funds. So we're excited for this opportunity for Greenleaf.
Any questions or comments from Director Sullivan?
I have one for Mr. Sullivan. Will they have bathrooms, Mr. Sullivan?
We have a concession building that is going to service the field. So there would be a restroom up there, and then we have the restrooms that would be in the Greenleaf Community Center. So with staffing or with a permit system, we could have bathrooms available. And then you have the public library that's right there in that complex too. So it's a neat complex that offers a lot of opportunities. So we renovated the Greenleaf Community Center and included the bathrooms in that renovation probably 8 to 10, well, probably 12 years ago now, over 12 years ago, that was renovated.
Okay. What about lighting? Will they have lighting or?
Yep, we want to improve the lighting on the youth soccer field, and it would have the safety lighting that we put in all of our park products. So at night, police can do their patrols and see in the park, and that deters vandalism.
Okay.
Barbara, thank you for asking that question. The lighting. I played many a soccer game, Pioneer Valley Soccer, on that field, and there was so-called lights, but you go into a corner, it was dark. So this is really, 60 Acres is very excited about it. And Walsh, that strip in Walsh Park in that area, which will be utilized for that neighborhood area too. That's a much smaller strip, but we're very appreciative of the school committee's consideration on it.
Right. All right.
Any comments?
Thank you.
Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to accept?
I move we accept.
Motion by Vice Chair Collins, second, please.
Second,
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, more than sufficient votes, matter passed. Thank you very much, school committee. Thank you. C is to approve revisions of the comprehensive school counseling program policy. Superintendent Ward, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Dr. Yolanda Johnson has updated the policy and is going to make some comments relative to the upgrades in the policy. And it's been through our curriculum and program subcommittee, and Denise Hurst may want to speak to it also. So I'll turn it over to Yolanda, and then Denise may make some comments. That's it.
Good evening, everyone. Chairwoman Hurst, is there anything you'd like to share before I start?
Thank you. I would just add that Dr. Yolanda Johnson and her team presented this past week, and last week, perhaps, was it last week, I believe?
Yes.
Last week, and it did report favorably out of subcommittee, and we're thankful for the work that they put in. Thank you.
So good evening. I just wanted to just quickly walk you through at a high level of the updates. So just in case you didn't know, who are your mighty school counselors? They are fierce student advocates who understand the needs of our students. They have a vision for our students, and they support our students in their post-secondary planning, whether it be college or career. Just to give you a brief history of our counseling policy in Springfield Public Schools. For some of you, you may not know, but the school counseling profession is over 100 years old. It has evolved through many phases, from career counseling to mental health counseling, and now it has shifted to a standards-based model that encompasses academic, social, emotional, and college and career counseling. You know, this also was birthed out of, you know, the need to change in the 1990s when education reform came upon us. There was a shift in how we did business in public schools. And at that time, you know, the school counseling profession had very little evidence of systemic effectiveness of the role and work of our school counselors. So We revised the National School Counselor Association provided a model for school counseling programs in 2003, excuse me. And in 2004, under the leadership of Missy Muriel Holloway, the policy was adopted by the school committee. We have since then revised the policy in 2009 and 2014. And as Ms. Hurst just shared, you know, our school counselors have always been involved in the development of this work. So this is not something that I created in isolation, but it's always been something from the time when Mrs. Holloway was with us that has always involved our counselors. And I want to just say to our superintendent and our school committee that I am thankful that our district is one of very few in Western Massachusetts that has a comprehensive school counseling program model. So thank you. What the American School Counselor Association does is this policy also just really reframes the wondering from what do school counselors do to how are students different as a result of what school counselors do. And so that brings us to our why we are here this evening. The Ask a National model was updated to the 4th edition, which has been included in the policy revisions. Our Ask a Mindsets, Behaviors, and for Student Success has been added. Our policy, it's simplified, it provides clarity, it reduces redundancy, and it's streamlined. And in summary, our policy, in these 4 quadrants, our policy really allows us to see that the school counseling profession has made great strides. I mean, I'm sure some of you may have some a vision of what a school counselor used to be in our schools. So it's no longer a cliquey social club. We are vibrant, future focused, and invested in the outcomes of our students. It's equity focused, so we support students around their academic development to ensure that they maximize their learning. We support students and help them manage their emotions and learn and apply interpersonal skills. And we support students in making the connection between their academics and why it's important in their post-secondary life, from grade to grade, level to level, and when they graduate and leave us and move on into the world. This framework centers our school counselors so that they operate and deliver services that are planned and focused rather than reacting. And again, it's standards-based and it aligns to our district goals and priorities across those 3 domains. And finally, you know, this model is to school counselors is what the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks are to our teachers. It's purposeful and it's a framework around student success. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Great job.
To do the proclamation for all the school counselors for the week. It should be every day for what they do. I'll open it up of a Superintendent Ward or school committee members. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Perez.
Yes, I would like to know if they have seen an increase due to COVID-19 when it comes to school counseling.
Dr. Johnson.
I'm sorry, an increase in school counseling, like needing.
Part of it, yes, due to COVID.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
I think it may be like referrals to the counselor.
Yes, increase in service.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Perez. Yes, I mean, our counselors have seen an increase in parents asking for our counselors to work with our students individually, just around, you know, the transition, working in a remote environment, helping students navigate and process their feelings when they are feeling frustrated in the virtual environment. So yes, and they've become very creative in what they're able to do with students in the remote environment to support them.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Perez. Thank you, Dr. Johnson. Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor to accept?
So moved.
Oh, Ms. Hurst, did you have a question?
No, she wants.
Oh, no, I was saying so moved.
Motion by Ms. Naylor, is there a second, please?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hurst, roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board is matter passes. B is to approve the amended 2021-2022 school year calendar. I think it was either Ms. Hurst or Ms. Naylor that picked up, I think it was Ms. Hurst picked up on a discrepancy there. We want to correct the superintendent Warwick.
Yeah, Denise caught this in the last time we brought the calendar forward. It's the celebration of Juneteenth Day. Now, when you go out to June of 2022, it occurs on, it's the 19th, but the state is now celebrating it on that Monday. The year before, where it fell on a Saturday, they didn't move it to Friday. So Mr. McCarthy and Attorney Phelps actually looked at the state materials on it. And Denise was right, it's celebrated now on that Monday. So on the calendar, we would have Monday where we close our offices and schools. And, we go out and that'd be a non-school day, and the school calendar be pushed out one day further, so the calendar reflects that out to closing hypothetically of the 23rd. As everyone knows, we close after we've been in session for 180 days. We build in 5 snow days, but it goes forward or back and closes based on 180 day. But that was a great catch, Denise. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. I don't have any comments at all. Okay, hearing none, is there a motion on the floor? So motion by Vice Chair Collins, a second, please.
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor, roll call vote is required. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Yes, board is pushing vote to pass. Thank you. We'll move to informational items, and with the indulgence of the school committee, so that Director Sullivan and Commissioner Helen Kaufman Harris can go home. If we could, I think they're here for the
ventilation work first.
Yes, yeah. Update on school building ventilation work, which would incorporate Director Sullivan and Commissioner Helen Kaufman Harris, and that way I can get them home. With the indulgence of the school committee, if that's okay. Thank you very much. Commissioner Kaufman Harris and Director Sullivan, please.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, we've been working hard over the last few months since we last met with you to prepare our schools for that early March potential. And we are on schedule. We're a little over 80% along with our work. The 4 older buildings, Brightwood, Homer, Liberty Prep, and Kensington are all on schedule with the electrical upgrades. That took us bringing Eversource in to upgrade the electrical system feed to those buildings so that we could operate the carrier units. All the carrier units have been delivered and installed, and we're balancing the system. The only issue that has arisen is our industrial hygienist has questioned the map used for the air exchange at Conservatory of the Arts. So we are bringing the industrial hygienist, the building owner, and our building commissioner into a meeting actually for tomorrow to have that discussion to see why there's a difference of opinion on that. And from there, we will make the decision of how to bring the building up to the standards that we need to under the pandemic standards that we're trying to follow under the industrial hygiene. So everything is going as planned, and our hope the week after next, we're going to start tours with the industrial hygienist so he can view the work, and then he will sign off on each individual building that we now meet that standard that we have set forth for the safety of our students and teachers.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. I'll ask Commissioner Helen Kaufman Harris. She'd like to say a few words. And again, we are going above the standards put across by DESE. We're going to ASHRAE standards. So Commissioner Kaufman Harris, and thank you for your time, Helen.
have been just here for that first night. Oh,
She might have left after the
Oh,
coaching.
that's right.
night. That's what I asked. I'm so sorry.
No, okay, so let me open it up, Superintendent Warwick, and then school committee members, any questions or comments they might have?
I'm just grateful to Pat Sullivan. He's not only followed through on all this, but he's constantly giving us updates and we're running everything down. And he's actually ahead of the schedules that we originally predicted. So they've done a great job of this. Appreciate it.
And the school committee should know a lot of the work is being done by the, our union trade staff that we employ. So you should be very proud. You took some critical votes a few years ago to keep the trades in-house, not outsourcing. And they're like mini engineers balancing these systems. And John Kerrigan and Pat Roach have just been tremendous with this whole process. So I see Pat on the line. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Director Sullivan. Any questions or comments of Director Sullivan?
I have a
I
question.
had a quick question.
Yeah, I'll go to Ms.
Sorry.
Naylor and I'll go to Ms. Hurst. Ms. Naylor?
So my question that I have is regarding Putnam specifically and some of the schools that have the low incidence programs in them that we're looking at possibly opening in March. Are those buildings done yet, or will we be updated when you discuss the reopening plan?
My goal is to have all buildings complete to the standards by early March.
Okay, thank you.
Putnam is already done, but some of the others with low incidence programs might not be quite complete. But Putnam is already.
We got another 3 weeks of work.
Thank you, Mr. Ms. Hurst.
I couldn't quite hear what Mr. Sullivan said about the Conservatory of the Arts. What was the concern, or what's the issue with respect to the Conservatory of the Arts?
Sure. So if you would recall, if you want to review later after this meeting, the industrial hygienist in the PowerPoint used a math formula for each of our buildings that he wanted each room to meet that 240 CFM of air in each classroom. He's questioning the math. He came up with a different formula. The building owner says he is meeting that. So we felt the best way to do that is to bring the industrial hygienist, the building owner, and then our building commissioner into the same room together to discuss how they meet that air exchange to that building. And that's why we did the study. I think it goes to the quality of the study that we're doing and the level of detail. And I think I probably would have been more concerned if they came back and blessed everything. So not that you want to find a problem, but we're going to get to the bottom of it and see why there's a difference of opinion. And I'll keep you updated as we learn of that. I met with the subcommittee last week and I informed the subcommittee that this question came up and we're just going to bring everyone together to discuss it.
Yeah,
Only school? There aren't any others besides that school?
That's the only building that came up, and that's a rental property. So the only other building we want to do the walkthrough, and Pat Roach helped us get permission of the main office building. I'm hoping to get that walkthrough done next week as well. That's the last building that needs to be reviewed, and we want the permission of the property owner before we go through with it. It took a little time for Mr. Kirchner to prepare the proposal for that building. It was the property owner's fault for that delay. So we're not expecting anything, but that's the last building we have to look at.
We did the buildings we own first and went through the whole process, and the lease buildings next.
And we wanted to concentrate to get this March deadline. So there's no classes taught at the central office, but we still, the superintendent and the mayor asked for that to be reviewed as well.
Just as a point of clarification, the Conservatory of the Arts ventilation system is of a different design than the ones we use. So that's why they're going back and forth to make sure it's getting the appropriate volume of air. Their engineer, who happens to be the owner, says that it does. Our expert says he's not so sure. He wants to meet and verify that the volume of air that's coming in is what it should be.
I have a question, Mr. Sullivan, if I may. So will you test the air quality prior to students coming into the building?
Yeah, I think Mr. Kirchner addressed that early on. We meet all the state building code already for air quality. We actually did a separate test for Harena, and we have a separate letter saying how the air quality is good at Harana because that's always one of your questionable sites. But yes, we meet all the standards of Mass Building Code for air quality in our school buildings.
Okay.
You should rest easy. We've got very good systems. We got our second shipment of the MERV 13 filters today, so we're doing are going into our second filter change on the MERV 13s, and everything's going very well.
All right, my next question, will they be testing the wastewater in the buildings?
The wastewater?
Yes.
I don't know why I would test the wastewater, but no, that's not on our agenda to test the wastewater in the building.
Because that was one of the things that I heard at a meeting, a COVID coalition meeting, is that the wastewater should be tested because the COVID symptoms sometimes are not COVID symptoms, but it's in the, you expel it from your body. Is that true? Is Mrs.
They were checking that. I've heard that. I went through the same thing, Mrs. Gresham, with another group that I work with. They check at the treatment plant.
Yeah.
And they find if there's any evidence of COVID, because they can actually find it in wastewater before it's treated. And then they kind of trace backwards. So that's done not as the water leaves the buildings. It's done at the treatment plant itself.
Are they doing that? Are they doing that, Mr. Mayor?
Water and sewer, I believe, is doing something along those
That I
lines.
can't, we'd have to ask.
I'd have to ask Josh Schimmel on it. I thought
That's a good question.
that's something that just came up. I mean, if we're saying hopefully not anything that reverted back to one of the schools, that obviously that would be looked at.
We would have no way of testing it at the school site, school committee woman question.
But is there a way that we can find out if it's being done?
I'll send an email
I'll
out to
send an
Josh.
email to Josh Schimmel on
And ask.
water and sewer. The executive
All right.
director. Check on
All right, thank you.
Very good point, Mrs. Gresham,
that. Thank you, Mr.
to make sure that we're doing it here because other locales are. That's a-
Thank you, Chris. That's the first time I've heard you say, anyone say I had a good question. Thank you.
That just came up.
They started this about 2 or 3 months ago in places where they were trying to trace it.
Yeah.
And keep it there. And where they trace it, they start at the treatment plants.
Yeah.
And there's a marker within the wastewater that tells them whether or not it's in the whole system.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions with Director Sullivan? Okay, hearing none, we'll.
Thanks, Pat. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Pat.
Keep you updated.
Thank you. Thank you, school committee, for your indulgence. Let's go back to the agenda, and that would be A, MCAS administration update. Superintendent Warwick, please. See you, Pat.
Thank you, Mayor. I asked Paul Foster to make a presentation. As late as this week, DESE is still making changes in the proposed MCAS administration. It's been controversial. A lot of folks across the state, MASS, MASC, other groups have spoken against the MCAS this year. But as it is now, the state is still planning or tentatively planning to administer the MCAS. And I wanted Paul to review the most recent pieces coming out of DESE as to what we would have to do at MCAS if they stick with the administration this year. A lot of folks, of course, are saying that it's not needed across the state and is going to take a lot of teaching time, lose a lot of teaching time relative to administering this test at this juncture. And it isn't even a diagnostic test to begin with, which is why they say they're using it. But Paul can speak to it better than I. So Paul, if you can go over where we're at with this for the school committee.
Sure, happy to. Good evening, everyone. All right, so I'm just going to walk through, what are the changes, so what has changed about MCAS, and then what the expectations are for administration. And I'll close by, as the superintendent was alluding to, it creates some problems, obviously. Some of the expectations around MCAS testing create some problems when we think about our hybrid return, and I'll walk through a little bit of that at the end. So in terms of the 3rd to 8th grade MCAS, so in 3rd to 8th grade, students take an ELA and a math MCAS, and in addition, 5th and 8th graders take a science MCAS in a typical year. So the first change they've made to the 3rd to 8th grade is that normally it takes 2 days of testing in each subject for the 3rd to 8th grade MCAS. So that would be 6 days in total. This year, they're giving students a shorter version. So they're one session or 1 day of English language arts, 1 day of math, 1 day of science. It does beg the question whether or not that's possible in every year. But that's the shortening they're doing for this year. Just to say, they had issued an FAQ because people were asking a lot of questions about, well, if a school district is still remote, can students take the test remotely? So I just included in the slide their actual quote in response to that question, which was that they had not announced plans to provide a remote testing option, that students have to test in school, including students who opt to remain remote for teaching and learning. Their answer to that question was if even students who opted to remain remote would still have to come to school to take the MCAS. I will say that there was a meeting today, so late breaking, where they said there may be an option for 3rd to 8th grade students to take the MCAS at home if they're still doing their learning remotely, but they have not announced anything. They essentially said today that they're thinking about it or contemplating it. Right now, you see on the slide the testing windows. So we're able to test students in grade 3 to 8 within those date ranges. And you can see, particularly for us, the English language arts testing window is problematic. These dates came out after we had started developing our hybrid plan. And you'll see there's some mismatches, and I'll talk about that a little more further in the presentation, about the mismatches between the testing windows and our hybrid return, because you can see we would have to have all 3rd to 8th grade students tested on the ELA MCAS by May 7th, according to this timeline. Now, as it relates to high school, it gets a little bit more challenging because in students, since we did not take MCAS last spring, the state is saying that all 10th and 11th graders need to take the ELA and the math MCAS this spring. This is not one that they're going to shorten because obviously this is the MCAS that students are expected to pass in order to earn a high school diploma. It's also the test that students are expected that is used for determining scholarships at public colleges and universities in Massachusetts. They'll be offering both their legacy. So all of this, the pandemic happened in the middle of this transition in testing. So they're going to offer both the legacy and the next generation MCAS for the 10th and 11th graders, but only the 11th graders will be eligible to take the legacy version. And you can see there that it's 4 days of testing in order to complete the ELA and the math MCAS for the 10th and 11th graders. They have not announced a testing window when the 10th and 11th grade testing has to happen. We've gotten some tentative information that they're looking at May 3rd through June 4th. So essentially the month of May would be when the 10th graders and 11th graders have to take the test. They're also looking at there's also a science test. And I'll talk about the competency determination in a second, but 9th graders who might be, for example, taking biology this school year, there will be an opportunity for them to take a biology MCAS in the month of June if they want to just get that out of the way. So that moves us to the competency determination, which is what all students need in order to earn a high school diploma. So this is a little, it's gotten confusing. So as you'll recall, last year for the class of 2019, they made it possible, for the class of 2020, they made it possible for students to earn who had not yet passed the MCAS. So the 12th graders last year, if they had not yet passed the MCAS, they received a modified competency determination based on whether or not they had passed a class in the relevant subject that covered the standards that are covered on MCAS. So you see the example on the slide, but a 12th grader last year who passed a geometry course would have been granted the modified competency determination. So for the class of 22 and 23, and so that is this year's 10th and 11th graders. Sorry, let me go back. Class of 21, this year's 12th graders, they have the same opportunity is extended to them. So we're able to certify if a student has passed a math, English, or science class that covers standards that are assessed on MCAS, we're able to get them a modified competency determination so they can earn their diploma. For the class of 22 and 23, the 10th and 11th graders, that is not the case. They're only doing that in science for current 10th and 11th graders. So in science, if a student passes a science class, they will earn the modified CD. But for now, the state is still saying that our current 10th and 11th graders have to take and pass the ELA and math MCAS to earn their diploma. And then for the class of 24, the current 9th graders, the usual rules apply. So they're going to need to pass the English, Math, and Science MCAS to earn their CD. So that was confusing. So I made this chart to sort of illustrate who has to pass the test and who gets the modified CD. So these are for the 4 classes of students who are currently in our high schools by subject area. So just mostly I'm sharing with you about MCAS, but because it plays into the issue of getting the testing done in time, we also are expected to administer the access assessment. Now, this is an assessment of English language proficiency that we are required to give to all English learners annually. It's a 4-session assessment. Now, 2 of those sessions can be done on the same day, but it requires 3 days of testing for every English learner, K to 12. And the testing window, it normally happens in January and early February. They extended the deadline to May 20th. But one of the things that means is at the same time we need to get students through the MCAS assessment in the month of May. For our English learners, we're going to need to get them through the access assessment as well. So in terms of the current expectations for how they're going to be administered, I shared this already. As of now, they're saying they have to be administered in person at school. As I said, there was some news today that they are considering a remote administration option for the 3rd to 8th grade MCAS, but we have not heard that about access, and we have also not heard that about the 10th and 11th grade MCAS. It sounds like they're planning to stick with the fact that students would have to come into school to take those assessments, including students who've opted to remain fully remote. And so what they're saying is that students who opt to remain fully remote, if they don't take the tests, will be marked absent. And you can see the note there that we're very concerned about the implications of that for our 10th and 11th graders who need this for their diploma, as well as the possibility of scholarship dollars. They are saying that 10th and 11th graders who don't take the test this spring will have other opportunities, because the state always provides opportunities for students to take retests. And they are also saying that students who avail themselves of the opportunity to take the MCAS on a retest basis will still be considered eligible for the scholarships that are based on MCAS. So I just wanted to highlight for you how many days of testing we're talking about when we look at our different grade levels. So again, sorry, this is a little bit confusing, but you have columns here for English learners and you have columns here for non-English learners, and it's different by grade level. So I'm going to highlight a couple. For our 3rd through 8th grade students, they have, if they're not an English learner, we need to find 3 days when they can take MCAS during those testing windows I showed you earlier, where they can do it in person unless the state follows through and allows it to be done remotely. If they're an English learner, they need 6 days. If you look at, again, 10th and 11th is the most concerning, because for them it's 4 days of testing for MCAS. And if they're an English learner in the 10th or 11th grade, it's 7 days of testing. And keep in mind, even in our hybrid return plan, students are coming back 2 or 3 days a week. And so when we say we need to find 7 in-person days in the month of May, there aren't that many. There are 7, but there's not many more than 7 in-person days for the average student in the month of May. So this slide is meant to really illustrate that. On the left, these are the deadlines for the completion of the various assessments. And again, high school, we're hearing May 3rd to June 4th. They have not announced that or formalized that. You can see on the right our hybrid plan. And again, just to reiterate, these were dates we had identified before the state had actually even published the testing windows. So the most obvious concern is we're supposed to complete testing all 3rd through 8th graders on an ELA MCAS by May 7th. And we have students in phase 4 who don't actually return until May 10th. So they would not be back in school until after the testing window had closed. The other thing I'm showing on here is the number of in-person days. So I alluded to this a second ago. The latest deadline we have is May 28th. For students in our current phase 4 returning on May 10th, the average student would only actually be in person 8 days prior to that deadline of May 28th, when all the testing is supposed to be done. Just a real quick version on accountability. So while DESE has said they're pursuing flexibility on accountability requirements, they haven't said exactly what the flexibility on accountability will be. The one commitment they have made thus far is that they will not name new chronically underperforming, what used to be called level 4 schools. They won't be naming new schools this fall. They have also said that they want to give MCAS, and that if they give MCAS, they will publish and publicize both school and district scores. So, you know, there's always a weighing of, like, there's the formal accountability and then there's the informal accountability of having everything on the front page of the paper. So the last slide I have for you is just, I wanted to highlight, the superintendent alluded to this. This is a little bit text heavy, but I wanted to highlight what DESE is giving as the reasoning why they want to continue with MCAS this year. And so on the left-hand column, you're seeing these are quotes from their PowerPoint of the reasons why we want to give MCAS. On the right, we just wanted to highlight our perspective on some of those explanations. So their first two reasons are that they give critical insight into academic losses and make it possible to assess students' progress. I think in Springfield and most districts around the state, we all already give numerous diagnostic and formative assessments. Like, I mean, you heard of many of these, our ANET assessment, our iReady assessment, that are actually designed as diagnostic assessments and give us much better and much more detailed data than we would ever get from MCAS. Their third explanation was that provide data on which students and districts have been most impacted by the disruptions in schooling. And it's just, that's one where we're not clear what the purpose of that is, other than to, well, unless there's some plan to use the MCAS data to give additional resources to schools that were more severely impacted by the pandemic. And then their last explanation is that they want to affirm that high school students are prepared for college and career. And that's just, I mean, we understand what they're saying there, but the reality is, if you actually look at research, things like student grades are much more predictive of success after high school than test scores. That's even true for tests like the SAT. And so we're sharing this slide with you because, as the superintendent said, there is a push around the state for the state to take a different posture towards the testing. And you saw the number of days in a year where our students have lost a lot from a teaching and learning standpoint, spending a large segment of our only in-person time we're going to get out of the entire year having kids take tests. We just wanted to highlight some of the reasons why we think we actually have alternative diagnostic assessments. So it's not clear that the explanation about why we have to give it is entirely reasonable. And sorry, I do have one last slide, so I just wanted to tee up at the end. So what are the key challenges that we need to address in terms of our hybrid plan and in terms of how to accomplish testing? I already highlighted the first one, which is that our current phase 4 has a subset of students who are in tested grades returning to school after the ELA testing window is closed. The second issue is this issue of fully remote students having to come in. So keep in mind, we're splitting kids in half and only having kids come 2 days a week because we have to keep the number of students in the building down for social distancing reasons. If we have to bring fully remote students back to school to take the test, we would essentially, for a week or two in the month of May, have to say to the hybrid students, they can't come to school because those are days that the remote students are coming to school to take the test. And then lastly, we're concerned again about the 10th and 11th because that's upwards of 4,000 students who, regardless of whether they have elected to remain remote or return to school, are being told that to take a test that is contingent for their graduation from high school, they have to come to school. So that's really, I don't know, Superintendent, if you want to open it up for questions. I mean, sorry not to be the bearer of better news, but that's kind of the lay of the land as it stands today in terms of MCAS.
No, thanks, Paul. I think you did a great job with that. I think you illustrated why it's so controversial across the state, and why every group I talk to, be it the teacher group or the superintendent's group, has been pushing back at the commissioner for some relief here. This just doesn't make sense. So just wanted to open it up for school committee for any questions. But great presentation, Paul, explaining.
Thank you, Stats. Any questions from school committee members?
I do.
Ms. Search.
Has anyone ever seen that emoji on the phone that looks like this?
Yeah.
I know.
because that's how I feel. So that was a good presentation, Paul, but I guess I'm wondering what solutions do we have? And in particular for the graduating students and then those who are going to remain remote. And all students, but I guess those are the two that came to mind for me immediately.
That's why we're bringing it forward, Denise. I think, we need to all continue to lobby against this because it just doesn't make any sense and there's no reason for it. We shouldn't be holding these kids to this test for a CD requirement at this juncture, given the fact that we've been in a pandemic. So I think we need to keep trying to fight back with a requirement. We've sent some letters to the legislature before. I think they're going to need to hear from elected officials, and I think we need to keep the pressure on the Secretary of Education as well as the Commissioner of Education. You can tell in our meetings we've been pushing hard with the Commissioner, but he hasn't moved off of it, but he agrees to keep thinking about it and getting back to us. So I think we need to keep the pressure on. I don't think it's a done deal, but I think if we don't put enough pressure on, they'll try to stick with us, and it just doesn't make any sense. For us, what we want to do is, for the 10th and 11th graders, the most crucial group, right, because those kids are taking it for a diploma. If they don't move back on those kids, and that's what's particularly horrifying right now, we'd have to organize to somehow try to bring those kids in to take the test, on these test days, so that they, would have the opportunity. We don't want to hurt them in getting a diploma in case they don't give us that relief. So I think that would be the most crucial group. The other kids, obviously, we'd have to look at our hybrid return. Now, we pushed the commissioner hard. Today, we were, as late as today, Lydia and I were in a meeting with the commissioner. And there's this pushback to allow the kids grades 3 to 8 to take it remotely. If the kids could take it remotely, it would take the pressure off. They could take the test at home because we can use the technology for the test. There's no need to drag those kids into school to take the test. So that would help us tremendously because it wouldn't put the pressure on. If not, we'd have to change some of the dates in the hybrid return plan to give some kids the opportunity to take it live. And of course, we'd have solutions to do that as this plays out. But it just puts a lot of pressure with so few live days returning to eat up many of those days on testing, and then put pressure on families who don't feel safe necessarily returning their child. Now they wouldn't be able to take the test. So I can see why you're upset over this.
We're all for accountability and standards. Don't get us wrong.
Question about it.
But there's got to be some type of flexibility. I think in Mr. Foster's presentation, staff's presentation, physical plant, a lot of disruption is going to be created too. Kids that you have to get back in, the kids that were already in, that means you got to move them back out. So we're just looking for some flexibility on certain key grades of, see if it could be done remote, but there's a lot of moving parts here. School committee members, don't have any questions. Vice Chair Collins?
How long, and maybe at our next working session in a couple of weeks, how long before it's incumbent upon us to let parents know this? That the current stand of the state is that your 10th and 11th graders won't get a diploma if they stay with this. You have to come in school to take the test. How long before we have to get that out to our parents?
They could get the diploma down the road by doing the retest. They just be moved out of their first opportunity to take the test. But it's a very important position, I think, for us to take to get information out on it. Yeah. Unless we can get the state to move back off of it.
Well, I think the more parents who understand what we just talked about would apply pressure also.
We'll work to get information out on that to parents.
May I ask a question?
Oh,
Ms. Taylor, and then I'll go back to Ms. Hurst. I'm sorry, Ms.
One of the things that I think you're aware that I sit on the Riot Council appointed by DESI to sit on the Racial Imbalance Advisory Council. And one of the things, we actually had a very heated meeting about this same conversation about a week ago. And one of the things of concern was absolutely kids who need to have to pass the MCAS in order to graduate, right? That was like the biggest thing. I think everybody agreed. We understand if there has to be, if we can't get a waiver from the federal government to not take the MCAS, that we understood having to do it in some capacity and even on a shortened schedule. But it looks like they still haven't committed to a shortened schedule. And it also looks like they're still trying to press the issue of our kids needing it to graduate. I want to know what happens when we don't comply, because I can tell you right now, parents who have made the decision not to send their kids in remotely are not going to be sending them in just because we say they need to take an MCAS. And to Mr. Collins' point, we need to let them know sooner than later so that they can be calling their legislators and calling whoever are the folks that are making these decisions to make sure that they understand how important this is, that their kids be considered, because it's not even just about the days, right? This is pressure and stress added on to a bunch of kids who have already experienced stress and pressure and anxiety just from dealing with being remote and trying to figure out how they're going to keep it together so that colleges will still accept them, or so that they can still have grades high enough to be able to do whatever they need to do to get scholarships and whatnot. So now adding this at this time is just not, I think it's almost evil. It's incomprehensible to think that anybody would think it makes sense to do this to 11th and 12th graders, or 11th and 10th graders, excuse me, who are already under a lot of duress, and the teachers that are already under a lot of duress trying to figure out how to make sure that our kids are not experiencing extensive learning loss. So I guess I say that to say I absolutely don't agree with it, of course, but I want to know what can they do if we don't follow through on it, because I don't think it's realistic, and I don't think that any parent is going to be pressuring their kids to come back to the building just for this.
So I think it's a great question and a great point. I think in grades 3 to 8, the truth is there's no consequence for the kids if they don't come in and take these tests. And I think a lot of parents will make a decision. We're not going to return our kids just to take these tests. This just doesn't make any sense. Where we worry most is right now they haven't addressed the CD piece for the high schools. I think if we push hard enough, I think we can get them to take care of that, because that this extra stress for those kids, their families, and our teachers who care about these kids. They know this isn't right. So those are the kids that would have a chance to take a retake later, but they wouldn't get the chance to take that first test, so they'd have more time to take retakes. Now, this year for the 12th graders, again, they backed off and are doing the competency determination based on the courses. But that's what we need to keep pushing for. Those are the grades that are going to be pressured enough. If the state doesn't back off, we'll create a scenario and we'll review that with you at our next meeting to have a plan to try to bring those kids in. But we're praying that we don't have to execute that plan, because it's not the right thing for our kids and their families. In the middle of a pandemic, to hold the kids accountable to a test to graduate, when in spite of all the obstacles, they're passing their courses and qualifying for diploma. It's just not appropriate. I think we need to keep fighting it. Like, folks at MASC, MASS, the MTA, we've been talking to the union about it, AFT to the parish. Everyone's in agreement this is not the right thing to do. The commissioner's been hearing a lot of it. He keeps saying, we'll review it more, we'll review it no more, not give an answer. So I think if everyone keeps pushing, we can get a change. But if we don't get a change for our 10th and 11th graders, we'll have to come up with a plan B to allow them to come in if they want to, because we don't want to negatively impact their opportunity to possibly get a diploma.
Ms. Hurst?
So I want to make sure that I understand, and I think it was because of the question or the statement that Chris made. So the 10th and the 11th graders have two opportunities: the first time the test is administered and then a retake.
They have the first time the test is administered in 10th grade, and then there's usually multiple retakes. Paul, You can answer this better than me. How many opportunities?
Yeah, I think they would have, well, it's different for now. It's even harder for the 11th graders, right? Because they've only got 1 year left. But typically they would have 2 or 3 retest opportunities after they take it for the first time in 10th grade. And part of why it's concerning to us is that we have many students who pass it on their 3rd or 4th try. And so if students don't get this shot in the spring, that's just one less chance.
Yeah.
And for the 11th graders, it's especially concerning because they may only have, they are saying they're going to offer additional retest opportunities for these classes. So my guess would be those 11th graders will get 2 chances next year, probably a fall chance and a spring chance. They haven't said that, I'm just guessing. But still, you know, having 2 chances instead of having 3 chances is concerning when you're talking about something as important as graduation.
So that's why I think it's significant, right? Because I do think that parents need to know that. They need to know that that one opportunity is in essence being stripped away or is no longer going to be available. And that's a big deal. And I'm hoping, right, that we are going to get onto the other side of this and not have to contend with it. But who knows what will happen or could happen where we find ourselves, you know, still dealing with hybrid or limited capacity. And so, you know, what does that then do? Does that take away another chance or opportunity? So I feel like, you know, to Chris's point, we have to make sure that people know earlier on so that they can advocate. And then the folks that are in charge, the legislature, DESE, can figure out how to put in certain interventions or you know, something, right? Some sort of measures to mitigate this.
Can I add to that in terms of the advocacy? I just want to clarify too that the federal law, No Child Left Behind, and then ESSA, the successor law, that only requires states to test kids annually in 3rd to 8th grade and once in high school. It does not require that the high school test be a graduation requirement. That's only us. That's only Massachusetts that's made that decision. And so if the feds didn't give us a waiver, the state would be obligated to make us test kids. It's the state legislature that has the power to take away the graduation requirement piece for this year.
It's a little disingenuous to say they're waiting for the feds because they don't need the feds to correct this issue. They can correct it like they did last year for our kids who hadn't passed it in the first try and would have had a retake. They didn't have the chance to take the retake. They went to their coursework. So that is disingenuous in the explanation. That's why we need to keep the pressure on.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, thank you very much. Thank you, Paul, staff, and Superintendent Ward. We'll now move to the
The hybrid plan, we did all with that there. We melded the two together because the hybrid plan, we could change dates if we had to, but we're hoping not to do that.
So then we'll move to C, overview of the Springfield Public Schools unlawful harassment of students policy, Springfield Public Schools anti-harassment of employees policy, previously approved and distributed October 1st, 2020. Superintendent Ward, please.
So folks were asking for a clarification on it, so we asked our attorney to work on it with Kathleen O'Sullivan, our Title IX coordinator. So I'm going to turn it over to them to make a presentation on that policy right now.
Good evening.
Good evening, Kathleen.
Matt, did you want to say something to start?
Mr. Grimes?
Yes, good evening, everyone, and an acknowledgement of Black History Month as well. Just wanted to set the stage and sort of provide us a grounding and rationale as to why these policies are important to us, both the non-discrimination policy and, of course, the Title IX policy that lies underneath that, right? All of these policies are part of a larger umbrella of strategies to create a more inclusive workforce here in Springfield. We want to make sure that all of our strategies ensure staff feel safe here in Springfield, and just an acknowledgement that we're cognizant that these policies impact recruitment and retention efforts as well. And so if we really want to create a culture of equity and proficiency, we're just here again just to review them and to make sure that we're doing that in a way that is inclusive for all folks. So I'll pass it back to you, Katie.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Mr. Grimes.
Sure.
Patty, if you want to start the PowerPoint. I just want to review just a little bit of how this policy got here and where we are tonight. This policy first went out to the Curriculum and Programs Subcommittee on September 30th. It was also brought to the entire school committee on October 1st and October 15th for voting. Because this was a change in policy, and the reason for the change in policy was at one time, this was a combined policy, both for students and employees. But when the Title IX regulations changed on October 14th, 2020, we now had new information that had to go into this harassment policy for both employees and students. So we separated them. Also, the student harassment policy now models the Massachusetts Association of School Committee policy, which was brought forward. So those are our reasons. Patty? And so the big change was the Title IX, like I said. Title IX prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities receiving financial assistance, including K through 12 schools, and the United States Department of Education Office of Civil Rights enforces Title IX regulations and changes. So the major changes to the policy, besides being split into two, was the title and how Title IX impacted the Springfield Public School policy was Title IX definition of sexual harassment changed. Also how schools had to respond to and investigate allegations of misconduct. And then changes of process and due process requirements were part of that change for the policy. And so for employees, what changed on how schools responded was that on Title IX requires to investigate every formal complaint and respond meaningfully to every known report of sexual harassment. And then also they highlighted the importance of supportive measures. What could be put in place to restore access to the settings, activities, with or without a formal complaint in the process of doing an investigation, not waiting until the end. How can we support people? And these are the same for the students, but one of the other variations that happened with students versus the employee was under Title IX, school districts have actual notice when an allegation is made to any school employee. Patty? And then the procedural and due process requirements that we've gone over are more administrative in some areas of this, where there's not a single investigator model anymore. There has to be other people involved, requiring a decision maker separate from the investigator or the Title IX coordinator. There is the presumption of innocence, written notice of allegations, the preponderance of evidence standard, written notice once a formal complaint has been here, equal opportunities for parties to appeal, and then the record keeping that 7 years of recorded documentation must be kept for all Title I harassment investigations regarding any employees. And then just the last slide, Patty, was just to talk about some of the trainings we've done since this point. Immediately following the passing of the policy that was done on October 15th, there was an administrator meeting where all administrators in the district were trained on these two policies, and also the gender identity policy that was passed on the same night. And then after that meeting, we went into the individual zones with the CSOs and principals to then go into small groups for more question and answering regarding this. So zone 1 and 2, which were the elementary, and then zone 3, which were the high schools. So there were several trainings for all administrators regarding these policies.
Thank you, Ms. O'Sullivan. Is there any questions or comments from school committee members?
Nope, just wanted to have the clarification on it.
Okay,
I have a question.
Ms. Taylor?
I looked at the policies and I do know, I remember when we went through this and I remembered the focal point from our standpoint when we discussed it in subcommittee was more around the changes in law and ensuring that we added in certain comments. For example, we had to add in particular homosexual or transgender and LGBTQ. So there was certain things that we had to make sure were added into the policy. And also we added in the social media, the internet stuff. What I'm concerned about is, although we have this document, I'm still concerned that there is an added layer of obscurity, and that when we talk about, for example, unwelcome comments or unwelcome behaviors, that the person, we're kind of leaving the onus on the person to decide if that's unwelcome or not. And I think when it comes to student, that makes sense. But when you start to talk about adult to student, regardless if that student is 16 or older or younger, then to me, unwelcome is really not a question because of their age and the fact that they're a minor. So I feel like even though we have done a job of making sure we align with the I again will say obscurity of the law, because we're leaving it open to folks' subjectivity, that we also need to make sure that there's an added layer of protection, in particular for our minors. And I know that mandated reporting is something that I don't see here. I do see that 51A mentioned, but I don't see the mandated reporting. And at what point is that, at what point is that, initiated, that's the word I'm looking for. At what point is that initiated? And it's probably not within this policy. It's probably something else in another policy that we need to be talking about. But anyways, my whole point is to say that I really think that we need to revisit this policy, or both of these policies if necessary, or if there's another policy that's applicable that we need to review, then we need to do that to make sure that there are no gray areas. And that we are, for example, when it comes to transportation, which is another issue that came up, if parents are allowing their students or their children to be transported by coaches or staff, I think that needs to be a question somewhere that we need to have as a permission or something, a permission slip or a part of the questions that parents have to complete when they allow their kids to participate in extracurricular activities and sports. I just feel like there's a lot of other things that we need to do. And so without getting into the weeds of what happens on the administrative side and with the personnel, because that is all under the purview of the superintendent, I think us as school committee members need to make sure we've closed loops as much as possible. And that way we don't feel accountable if things happen that should not happen.
Thank you, Mr. Can anybody clarify any of those points at all? Right now? Attorney Kennedy?
Yes, if you'd like to, I can comment on some of those. Those are good points to make, Ms. Naylor. That's one of the reasons why we separated out the employees from the students, because the requirements are different for students than it is for employees. One of the concerns you raised was the issue of how you determine what is sexual harassment. The policy does have a definition of that. It is a little cumbersome, but it is a reasonable person's, based on a reasonable person's standard. So it reads, sexual harassment is unwelcome conduct of a sexual nature. Under Title IX, the definition includes unwelcome conduct on the basis of sex determined by a reasonable person to be so severe, pervasive, and objectively offensive that it effectively denies a person equal access to SBS's education program or activity. So it's based not on a reasonable person standard on that. And it is, and then later on, then they talk about in the policy that the definition is broad, so that it covers a lot of other, has another definition that talks about it being unwelcomed and has the effect of creating an environment that's hostile, offensive, intimidating to male, female, or gender non-conforming students. That can also constitute sexual harassment. So it is broad in that sense,
Excuse me, may I interrupt very
Sure.
quickly just to
Absolutely.
clarify my question? So I understand that aspect of it, Attorney Kennedy. I think my concern is when you talk about unwelcome, what is reasonable to a person. If you have a child who thinks they're in love with an adult, to them it's welcome and they don't know that there is an issue. So that's why I feel that it's up to us as adults to make sure that we have measures in place that don't wait for the child to determine that it's unwelcome, because some things are inappropriate. And so we as an adult may look at a situation and say it's inappropriate, but a child who's 16 or 17 or 15 may say, no, this is great, this is fine, I don't see a problem with this. So you understand what my concern is as a mom?
Yeah.
Not just a community leader, but as a mom, that I know my daughters, and I know I have teenagers, and I know that they make some decisions, and I think that's totally inappropriate, and they think there's nothing wrong with it. And so to them, it's sensible. To me, it's totally not sensible. So I that's all I'm saying. I think adult to adult, I completely get, because at that point, they should be held accountable for whatever decisions they make. But when we talk about minors, they don't always know what's acceptable or inappropriate. And that's why we as adults have to make those decisions to make sure that they are covered.
And I agree, and I understand that point, Ms. Naylor, because under the notice section of the harassment policy, it talks about the school district has notice when any one of the school employees knows of the allegation. So really, so you don't have to wait for a student to say, I think this conduct's unwelcomed. That can be by one of the staff can observe behavior that they, that would then constitute a violation of the policy.
Thank you.
But it
May I
is an
ask-
educating your staff issue, though, is what I think you're also addressing here, Ms. Naylor.
Attorney Kennedy, Ms. Hurst?
Yes, may I, thank you, Mayor. May I ask a question, Attorney Kennedy? And I'm switching to another screen on my computer, but on the document that was sent to us, the unlawful harassment of students, on the first page, underneath employee to student harassment, I think I have a similar question to Mrs. Naylor, which is, it starts to talk about the conduct of a written, verbal, or physical nature. And I guess I'm just wondering, where is it that we address that an employee to student harassment might be abusive, specifically physical in nature, and where does mandated reporting come into play with respect to this policy? And I'm not so sure that I've expressed it in a way that makes sense, but I guess when I'm reading this, I'm thinking to myself, the employee to student harassment sounds to me like it should be that there shouldn't only be a mention of necessarily Title IX, but that I see the section 51A, but where do we talk about the responsibility of being mandated reporters and who that responsibility falls on?
I think you were pointing, Ms. Hurst, that on page 2 of the policy, it does talk about an obligation to report cases to 51A. And this does not go into the definition of who a mandated reporter is, but I believe that it's all education. It's a pretty broad definition of mandated reporters. And Ms. Shea can kind of correct me as well. It involves teachers, administrators.
So I'm sorry, maybe I didn't ask it the right way. So the only time that we're talking about 51As is under the sexual harassment, but not up at the top when it's the employee to student harassment, when it's either written, verbal, or physical. Is that included? Is that encompassing of all harassments?
It depends on the conduct. It could be that if neglect of a student, and depending on if it's based on another protected characteristic under the law, then that could be rise to a reporting of a 51A. If it puts a child in harm or reasonable that there's a reasonable belief that they are in neglect or have physical injuries.
So I guess the way that I'm reading this particular policy, or the way that it's being read, or the way that I'm reading it is that the only time we cite the MGL 11951A is under sexual harassment, and not necessarily up at the top when we're talking about employee to student or student to student harassment. So I guess that's my question, is that we only cite, or my concern is that we only cite Title IX when we're talking about those two types of harassments on the first page. Does that make?
I understand what you're saying. Yes, but you could have, there's a possibility of a 51A obligation to report, a mandated report for neglect or a student suffering harm as a result of conduct that doesn't arise out of sexual harassment. It could arise out of other types of unlawful harassment. And that would still be an obligation to report, even though it's not specifically referenced like that in this. There still is a mandated separate obligation to report that.
So where is that in our policies?
There may not be a school policy on that because of the statutory obligation as a mandated reporter.
I would just offer that it's state law, so that it's throughout every single policy, whether it's stated or not, and certainly 51As, are routinely filed as a result of any suspicion. I mean, I think there's an error on the side of caution, and that even Mike, I guess I'm sorry, I'm inartfully stating it, but I wanted to say, I want to make sure that we don't single out 51A with regards to sexual harassment only. So if in fact it's the will of the school committee to add that to this policy, I would think we'd have to be really careful to indicate that it's not. I just am concerned with regards to the statutory obligation, and not to undermine that obligation by tying it to one particular policy.
And I understand what you're saying, Attorney Phelps, but my understanding of a 51A is that it's any allegation, or it's an allegation of physical, sexual, emotional abuse. And I guess when I'm thinking about employee to student harassment, and when it says means conduct of a written, verbal, or physical nature that is designed to embarrass, distress, agitate, disturb, or trouble students, that to me falls or could be covered under that. And I get what you're saying. I know that it's more comprehensive, the 51A, sure. But I guess I'm thinking to myself, when I'm reading employee to student harassment, all of those things, right? This type of harassment would or should trigger a 51A. And all being cited is Title IX. And at the bottom of this policy, all that's being cited as potential agencies for where a complaint can be filed was with MCAD, Office of Civil Rights, and then EEOC.
Yeah, and it's under 51A, it's not even an allegation. It's if you have a suspicion.
Suspicion, correct.
I mean, it's the lower standard because of the concern for minors. So, and again, Title IX is a specific grid for the ways in which an investigation must be conducted. And actually, it's a slower process than a 51A. So, I don't know if it's the will of the school committee to take a look at the policy again and to see if it needs to be emphasized in a different way. I think draftsmanship would be key here.
Vice Chair Collins, please. Listening to the very good points that are being made, and what I'm hearing is that the possibility of adding that language of 51A into these two policies could lead people to believe that it's limited to that. And 51A is clearly, as Denise just stated, if you're a suspicion of any of those things, you're required, you're mandatory. So maybe on it, we should consider that there should be at least a sentence added. This in no way restricts your requirements under 51A to report any suspected behavior to those policies, so that people don't get the idea that 51A, you're restricted. It's a very good point. And people could read it that way, but we don't want them to read that way.
And I also think to that point, Chris, that the other thing is that it only on that particular page talks about or cites Title IX. I mean, I don't think it hurts. I think it came through curriculum and programs last time. I understand what Mrs. Naylor is saying, and I know that there's a level of concern and wanting to really make sure that we have all of the things necessary in place to protect our students and to protect our staff and employees and the superintendent, so that everyone is clear about responsibility, responsibility. I'll stop there.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Rez.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing from all parties when it comes to the 51A. I think it's the process itself that is questionable, because the 51A is the investigation of some disclosure. The process is that we need to clarify. So to a parent, so what happens after the 51A? I think the confusion is that we have the Title IX, but we haven't not investigated the process itself. We're not clarified with the process, because of 51A, then it goes to another department. That's the process. And then from the 51A turns out to be a 51B, which is a sustain of whatever had happened. But I think it's the process itself for explanation. When it comes to the Title IX, what happens after the 51A? I think that there's a lot of confusion because I was reading it myself. So the 51A should not be only one process of the aspect. And I think that's where, as a parent, that I understand what Ms. Naylor is saying. Having worked with children through the Department of Children and Families. So I think it needs to be revised in terms of that process. And I think that's where the conflicts enter. Not so much the explanation of the Title IX, if I am clear of what I'm saying.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Any clarification or any other questions or comments on this?
I would what's the process for us requesting to send this back to subcommittee for review? As I agree with all of my colleagues, this is, there needs to be some clarification and conversation, and I think we started here, but to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and I admit myself, when I last reviewed it, I wasn't looking at it from this angle, but new things have happened since that review. And so now it helps us to relook at it again and make sure that we're accountable. And I think it's hard for us to hold our administrators accountable if we don't have the policies in place to direct them and guide them accordingly.
I'd be happy to go back, look at the language, propose some suggested revisions, and then meet with the subcommittee again to address that.
Yeah, I think it has to go back through subcommittee.
Yeah.
So,
Attorney Kennedy, Attorney Phelps, so we'll go bring it back to a subcommittee. And thank you for a very thoughtful and insightful question. If there's no other questions,
take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to reports of standing committees, student relation, parent concerns, discretion.
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Buildings and Maintenance Committee, Vice Chair Collins.
We covered it during the meeting.
Thank you. Legislative Contracts Committee, Ms. Perez.
No report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Curriculum and Programs Committee, Ms. Hurst?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we had a meeting yesterday afternoon regarding the High School of Commerce mascot. We had two individuals who Assistant Superintendent Martinez and Athletic Director Dwayne Early had been working with to help spearhead an appropriate process. Dr. Davis Delano, do I have that right, Assistant Superintendent Martinez, and Rhonda Anderson, I believe it is. So we had a very informative meeting. The superintendent was there, so were representatives from the zone, and we'll be moving forward, and I'll be having a conversation with Vice Chair Collins about the recommendations, which is to have a town hall, and then at some point it would come before the full committee.
Thank you, Ms. Hurst. Any questions or comments on Ms. Hurst's report? Thank you. Budget and Finance, Vice Chair Collins?
No report at this time. We'll be having a meeting shortly to put our calendar.
Thank you. Vocational Education Committee, Attorney Murphy?
No report, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Murphy. Technology Committee, Attorney, Ms. Taylor?
No report, but we do have a meeting coming up soon.
Thank you. School Safety Committee, Ms. Gresham?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Gresham. Special Subcommittee Staff Demographics, Ms. Perez?
No report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Perez. I don't know if Naz or Jennings, he's a student representative, Springfield Public Day High School. I know he's been on before, but I don't know the last few meetings. I know he works too. Naz, are you around? All right, Naz, I hope good health for you and your family. Report of the superintendent, Superintendent Warwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Looking at the end of January, when we looked at the attendance was at 92.1%. We looked the year before, it was 93.2. So, we're only down 1.1%. Kind of an incredible, I think, testimony to the work of our teachers, counselors, principals, in engaging kids and keeping them involved in the remote learning site. See that as very good news. Our meals program, since we shut down last March, we've supplied 6,024,952 meals to our families through our 18 distribution sites. Last weekend alone, we delivered over 100,000 meals to families. Springfield has real issues with food insecurity, and during this pandemic, it's been tough. So I just want to commend the SPS team. Pat Roach is on, Tim Gray, and our Sodexo partner for just doing an incredible job. No one in the Commonwealth has done anything like this. It's just incredible. So great job to staff. We have a teacher who won an award for Mass Insight. Mass Insight's been our partner in increasing AP opportunities, advanced placement opportunities for our students. And one of our teachers this year won their 2019-20 award for AP STEM and English and AP Stats. Teacher Shelby Sigismund Sharp at Central. Central a few years ago was recognized working with Mass Insight for having the highest percentage of minority students in the Commonwealth actually taking AP tests. So they continue that great work. And she was one of 16 people in the Commonwealth that received that recommendation. We sent something out to the school to see that, but great work to Shelby. And there's going to be a forum to recognize. None of the awards assemblies are like they used to be, but they're going to be recognized across the state. Eastman Company, company that's actually the old Monsanto. They've done so much work with plastics over the years. Their CEO, Sean Pace, stepped forward with the urging of one of our counselors, Gianna Allentuck, who's like the Energizer Bunny. She never stops moving and getting involved and trying to help our kids. Step forward. I got a call from Chris Collins from Tony Signoli. They wanted to step up and create these special workstations, lap desks, they call them, for our kids. So they actually worked with Gianna, Assistant Superintendent Martinez, design these lap desks, and then built 1,500 of them, and are now supplying them to our students at our 18 food sites for any family who needs these lap desks. But you know, they built 1,500 specially designed just for our kids. It's a great example of corporate citizenship like Sodexo stepping up for our kids. And when you go on and look at our classes, you can monitor our teachers working with kids. And we've been doing a lot of that. And you see some of our kids that the workstations aren't ideal. They have the technology, but they may be laying on a bed or something like this. This gives them a nice plastic station where they can rest the computer and work from that. So I just wanted to thank Eastman Company, John Page, Tony Sigoli, for stepping up as a great corporate citizen, just to do the right thing, helping families through this super pandemic.
And when I heard about it, you think about the lap type thing, you put it on your lap. They literally designed, it's pretty cool. It is like a little mini desk. So wherever you're sitting in a chair, on a couch, on your bed, it is, and Assistant Superintendent Martinez, Jen Oliver, they really helped with the design, how you were sitting down. It is really fantastic what they've done. Much more comfortable with having your laptop on.
Just if I could add, Gina Allentuck and I sit on their team. They have a team called the CAP. They have been involved in our city since they first came. They're a great corporate citizen.
They've donated a number of things. So.
Yeah, you know, I think it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas. I think they did $150 gift certificates. And I told the school committee about it at that time. Same company, they wanted to help. They weren't going to run a traditional Christmas party at Eastman Company, so they had the money. So what can we do? And Chris called me, and they did the gift certificates for our families so they could go to Big Y and buy food for them. So that's that same Eastman Company, and they're just great folks. I just wanted to recognize them publicly. Tony Sigoli that works for them. School Building Commission, we had a great meeting today, and we got to review the design plan for Homer and DeBerry. And it's very, very exciting, really great. You know, Barbara's been running community meetings, working on the design. So I asked the designer to make a presentation to the school committee. So at one of our upcoming meetings, they're going to walk through the whole design process and what's been done so far. It's extremely impressive. They also offered people, and if any school committee people are interested, down at Brightwood in Lincoln to do a walkthrough. I went through a week or two ago with Pat Roach, and the progress there towards completion is rather incredible. And the design now in Homer and DeBerry is like really exciting to see it coming forward. So, you know, Danisco Design has done a tremendous job for us, but it's going to be exciting. So we're going to be able to review that with the entire community. And I think the folks will be impressed with what you see.
And I asked Peter Garvey to also get some pictures from Brightwood
for
that same night. So if people who don't get a chance to go see there, we'll get some actual photographs of how well that building's coming along.
But you know, if anyone's interested in walking through, Peter offered that he'd walk folks through, and like I say, it was rather incredible to see it all come together. Really exciting. Two very positive developments. And that concludes my.
Any questions to Superintendent Warwick's report? Okay.
Mayor, could I make one comment?
Tony Murphy, yeah.
I just wanted to say that Mr. Sharp is my daughter's teacher, you know, and he does a great job, and we're very happy that he's been recognized by the superintendent. And no, I also Miss Perez's glasses. I think we need to acknowledge glasses.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Murphy.
Oh, and Mrs. Gresham, they did mention in the meeting, for your neighborhood meetings, that they're going to start, as soon as the snow goes away, they're going to start on the park right away.
Oh, that's right.
It's part of that project.
Yeah.
And that's going to be as soon as the weather breaks, they're gonna start on the product, and they anticipate that to be done pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's gonna be done soon.
Yeah, by next year, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, good.
well before the school.
well before the school.
Yeah.
They're gonna start on it as soon as the weather breaks, to get as much done as they can this spring.
They've come quite a distance with it. They've done
Yeah.
really well with it.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions on superintendent's report? Okay, hearing none, unfinished business.
I have a question, Mr. Mayor, for the superintendent. Do you think that the teachers will get the vaccine prior to reopening the schools?
I think that's a great question. And I've been working with Jeannie, Clancy, and Helen to try to get an estimate of that. And it doesn't look like they would have it prior to what our tentative planned opening was. We said we'd attempt to open March 15th. It doesn't look like the teachers are going to be vaccinated or the school staff would be vaccinated before that. For example, if they get Moderna, when they get the vaccination, then they have to wait 28 days to get the second shot, and the full effect is 2 weeks after that. So right now, it doesn't look like for the present vaccination schedule that everyone would be vaccinated before a return. We have to look at that as a school committee and see how we want to deal with that.
How we can work it.
We want to bring that forward for the working session. And then we'll talk to you too about the negotiations that are impacted during the executive session before the working session, which is the 25th.
Okay, all right.
But great question.
The governor announced he was extending it for 75-year-olds at least another week, which pushes the teachers even further out.
Yeah, it's created a lot of problems across the entire state, not just Springfield. You know, the not having the teachers in that first group, or all educational employees.
First, yes.
We need everybody. We need our Sodexo employees, our paras, our teachers, our bus drivers. In order to come back the way we'd like to, we'd love to have them vaccinated. And them getting pushed back in that original schedule is making it very difficult for us, but everyone else in the Commonwealth.
Right. Okay.
We're hopeful with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris. They're laser focused on this COVID-19 and they stated it's a wartime effort now in the Defense Act, and more and more manufacturing of the vaccination, and if new ones come on board, so the more that can be pumped out at the federal level will come down to the states. And then we can move accordingly. Johnson & Johnson, I think, is going to be okay. That's a one-shot deal, just one shot.
Right.
We'll see until.
And you know, we're fortunate here in the city. Our nursing supervisor, Jeannie Clancy, works very closely with our health commissioner. And when the fire and police groups were taken care of, our school nurses helped with that. So if we were able to get vaccine, we could open our school sites and vaccinate our 5,000 employees when you include Sodexo. And that doesn't include the bus drivers. But we'd be able to help with that if we were able to get the vaccine. So we're looking at every opportunity to get the vaccine out to our team. And we'll be giving you more information as we have it. I wish we had more right now, but that's really all we have.
And Helen, Commissioner Carlton Harris, and I have voiced as early as yesterday, again, to the governor and the lieutenant governor, that we'd like to be able to get our own vaccines if the supply goes up. Helen and I, with Pat Sullivan, we've already strategic areas in the city, 10 areas in the city to get them more targeted populations and make it a little more convenient for them, besides the mass site. But it all comes to supply. But it's been a great team effort with AMR, our nurses, Helen's staff, everybody working together. Give us the supply, and we will. We have the communication methods and the logistics to get it done. We can't do massive sites, but targeted population, neighborhood population, targeted population to make it more convenient. but we need the supply to come in.
Fine, good.
I don't know if everybody saw, but the governor made a change yesterday that if you've got a family member who's in the over 75 group and they're going in for it and you are accompanying them, you can get an appointment to get the shot now.
Yeah, I heard that yesterday too.
But, we do warn seniors though.
Oh yeah.
To not take it, to not be taken, and shame on those despicable scammer BS artists that are calling up about payment. The ones saying, "I'll give you a ride." They have ulterior motives, and we already put word out to our beloved senior population. Please do not fall for that type of outreach. You don't have to pay for anything, and people looking at you. You don't go with anybody unless you know them and you trust them. Period. But as you know, there's unscrupulous people out there looking to take advantage of our seniors. And shame on them. It was their mother, their father, their grandmother, or their grandfather. And I hope they're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Millie Johnson, my mayor's office of consumer affairs, has it, as does AG Maura Healy on it. Don't seniors, you get those calls. Don't pay attention to those calls. Don't give anything. Don't give any information. Don't take any rides.
Right. So do you think you'll be opening up more sites in the city, Mr. Mayor? I know they opened up one in East Long Meadow.
Well, that's a big why, a private. We, again, I voiced to Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito as we're talking about straightening out that the Eastfield Mall curative thing, finally, which seems to be now flowing. Suggest put forward that if more supply comes in, Mr. Colton Harris and I, that's something we're already working on logistics. But for targeted, neighborhood areas, targeted populations to make it more convenient. If much more comes in, I know the superintendent, we spoke again earlier this morning about how do you deal with our teachers.
Yes.
And all school employees, because you get people coming in and out on the timing of this. So hopefully that Johnson & Johnson kicks in. The Moderna, you're right. If you add, I guess, the 2 weeks after
the 28, and then the 2
and then
weeks
the,
after,
and then the
Mayor, it
Pfizer,
really makes
the
a difference.
Pfizer's along the same way.
It's 21.
There's Johnson & Johnson AstraZeneca, which is coming out of England. I don't know what the status is on that. So this is we're building the airplane as we go right now.
And I did check just for clarity that site in East Long Meadow is run by Big Y that's next door.
Yeah.
It's their pharmacy, and there's a lot of Springfield that abuts there. They're not limiting it to East Long Meadow. Anybody who can call the Big Y and try to get an appointment and go there as well.
Oh, okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
The last thing I'll say is, and they've been a great partner besides AMR, Bay State Health System, Dr. Mark Kerouac, and we're working together too. We're very hopeful that some announcement could come pertaining to again our direct Springfield residents. So we're hopeful. So we've already set up mechanisms. It's just about get us the supply. We get the supply. We're ready. As we've done with the testing, we've expanded testing to neighborhood areas also. Rebecca Johnson, we've done the North End, at Kennedy and the Orchard going. There's other sites. So, we know what to do if they can give us the supply. I think we're still on unfinished business, am I correct? Okay.
Yes, can I ask a question? So Barbara had just asked about the vaccinations for our teachers. I just wanted to know, Superintendent, is the survey to parents and families going out with respect to this children returning to school, or how they might opt to have their children return to school?
We've begun to survey the first phase, and a few schools sent it out early to some of the later phases that we wanted to. We're beginning to get some of the returns back. And it looks from the early returns to be similar to August, like 50-50 on whether parents want the kids to come back in or not. And of course, we'll honor their request. So if they want to send it back, we would take them back. But if they want to stay remote, we'd honor that as well. But they're going about 50-50. Even in that high need sped population, it's close to that, but we don't have all the returns back, but they seem to be running like that. The boat's running similar to that, the slide.
And what about, I thought that we had talked about this one of our other meetings. If a family opts to either stay remote or go hybrid, will they have the ability to switch from whichever model they've chosen, or once they make that decision, it's going to have to stay?
Yeah, so in our plan, the state recommended if you're coming back this late, the parent would have to make the declaration for the rest of the year.
So they do have to make a declaration. It's not flexible.
Well, because we'd have to, like, say, for example, SPED, we'd have to every time a parent changed their mind, we have to reprogram all our SPED buses. It would become impossible.
Any other unfinished business? Okay, anything under new business? Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Motion by Vice Chair Collins. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Naylor. Roll call vote is required due to the Zoom meeting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Naylor,
Yes.
Attorney Murphy,
Yes.
Ms. Hurst,
Yes.
Ms. Gresham,
Yes.
Ms. Perez,
Yes.
Mr. Collins,
Yes.
Mayor Sarno.
Mayor, more than sufficient vote, Ms. Patterson. Good evening. Thank you for watching. Good health. Happy Valentine's Day. Don't forget your sweetheart. God bless you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Guys, take care.
Bye. As eloquently as the mayor.
With everything going on, people,